everyone. I'm here with Cheta Portlock today, who contacted me a couple weeks ago about his dog named Sammy, who was having problems with her ear. And just to give you a little backstory on Sammy, Cheta has a friend named Ivy who was already feeding her dog RMF and was really liking the results and was sharing the information with Cheta. And he was liking what he heard, but he was he was a little reluctant, hadn't read the book or anything yet. And he did start RMF though with his dog, and he noticed that she had some skin detox, some skin issues, which is normal. And then suddenly, actually before that, he started feeding only plant foods for a while because he thought that would, and Ivy had, or his friend had told him that that it might accelerate the cleansing a little bit. So he thought he would try that. So he fed only plant foods for a few months. And then suddenly his dog got a very bad case of inflammation in her ear, and it was very painful and very swollen. And he was wondering how he could help her or accelerate the process or whatever. So Ivy suggested that he contact me, which he did. And I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and we decided on a way to proceed. And I wanted to invite Cheta here today to talk a little bit about that because it involved fasting. And he kind of had to jump in with both feet, even though he wasn't really sure what he was getting into. And it worked out really well. So I wanted to introduce Cheta now, Cheta Portlock, and to talk about his dog, Sammy. So, hi, Cheta.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. This is helping people.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, super. So, so anyway, we will be inserting before and after pictures in the video so that people can see what you started with. And as you were just telling me, the first time you noticed that she had a problem with her ear, someone had petted her and she yelped like it hurt her. So that was your first clue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was on a Saturday. So it was a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I had some friends over and somebody pet my dog's ear and she yelped a little bit. And then when they left, I checked her ear and I was starting to see some signs of inflammation there on her ear flap mostly, but also around the outside canal, outside of the canal, ear canal.
Like pus coming out.
It wasn't even really pussy yet. It was really just kind of, there were some bumps.
Oh, okay.
And it was, there was a little bit of just inflammation. I could see it was red.
Okay. And then how did things progress over the next few days?
So over the next few days, what happened was the next day, and I was checking this pretty regularly, multiple times a day, and I was taking pictures at least once and sometimes twice a day, because sometimes as it kind of kept progressing, it started getting worse. And so from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, there was a marked change in increase in inflammation on some days. So,
and the ear flap itself was swelling.
And the ear flap started swelling, so it started just, engorging. It was very clearly inflamed, and she looked a little funny because like it was like 3 times the size of her other one. Further as we got further into this process of what was happening with the detox. So the next day I checked it, and I noticed there was a little bit of blood around the ear canal opening, right around the perimeter. And Ivy was out of town. I sent her a picture. I said, "Look at this." And she said, "Oh yeah, she's detoxing." I was like, "Yeah, but there's blood. Is that like a normal thing?" And she said, "Well, it's just part of it sometimes, I guess, And, but then, and I thought that was bad, right? No, it didn't even come close to bad. it got so bad over the course of the next few days. I was actually crying one morning. It was breaking my heart because I could just see that this was
Oh.
just not good for her. She was really struggling.
Now, when this ear issue started, you guys had talked about what you should feed Ivy
Yeah.
and feed Sammy, and Ivy had suggested a meat meal might slow things down a little bit, and we do recommend that sometimes when dogs are on a high plant rotation, they start detoxing pretty fast, and sometimes adding meat can slow it down. Sometimes it works in just the opposite way, so it's kind of a thing to experiment with. But you found that that didn't work. It made the situation worse.
Well, it may have, like I was saying,
May
it,
have.
it, it may have contributed
Didn't
to
help.
an acceleration of the progression,
Right.
but it almost seemed like it was like a freight train out of control,
Right. Yeah.
honestly. Just the way it was progressing so quickly, even before I fed her any meat. But perhaps it did. I don't know.
Okay. And then, so on Tuesday, when you finally contacted me, you were really worried about her. It was
This
really
is
looking ugly.
this is my cry day. I called Ivy and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I don't. I was ready to take her to a vet, seriously,
Right.
because uh, it was um, it was really freaking me out. I was afraid that she was going to get an ear infection. My
Mhm.
dad's dog died of an ear infection when he was a kid, and it was just very painful, and this is what I was thinking in my mind, is that
Yeah.
this could be potentially what's happening. So that was what I was most concerned about. Uh, and then once I talked to you, man, it abated a lot of my anxiety and concern. It really put me at ease because you're very clear, you're very confident about what you're sharing, the information you're providing. So, and you've had the experience of this. You've done this so many times over the years. I'm sure that you know what you're talking about. And so I was thinking, all right, well, as long as I know that we're okay here and there's not a real major concern, then I can relax into this and just kind of move with it and flow with it.
Right.
And that's what
I
I
did
did.
have the exact same experience with my dog that ended up living to age 19.
Yeah.
He had a very bad case of ear inflammation, and what you saw in Sammy would be called an ear infection by a vet. If you had taken her in, they would call that an infection.
Yeah.
But and so he had my dog had the same thing. I don't recall whether his ear flaps were actually swollen, but very miserable scratching his ears on everything. He's walking along a fence trying to scratch his ear.
Mm.
And then within a couple weeks after that, he was deaf, and he was 9 years old at the time. I hadn't figured out how to properly feed him. After that, I did, and he never had another so-called ear infection. It was too late to save his hearing because nerve damage was done. um, so hopefully you haven't had that happen with Sammy, but I fasted my dog for 11 days, and he became a puppy again after that. Not only, I mean, did his ears clear up, but he rejuvenated. So anyway, so yeah, I did, with the ear issues, I have lots of hands-on experience, unfortunately. So he came to the right place.
Yeah. That's good. I don't think I actually knew all that before, but that's nice to know now. It's like, oh, okay, well, then you really do understand through your direct experience what that was like, and because you had to go through that with your own dog. So I don't know about the hearing loss piece, if that's a factor. I hadn't even really thought about it, so
And you
I'm
might
not
not
even
be able to
sure.
tell because she'll obviously probably still have her hearing in the other ear. And so you might not be able to tell that she's deaf in one ear if she did lose some hearing. I don't know. Hopefully she didn't. How old is she? She's 5, right?
10.
Oh, she's 10. Well,
Well, I'll
um,
tell you, I mean, I was looking in there every day with the flashlight on my phone and into the ear canal deep down, and I didn't see a lot of inflammation going on there. I did see some fluid and stuff there, but
okay.
inflammation seemed to stay pretty much around the outside of the ear, around kind of just inside the ear canal, but not deep inside, and then the ear flap. That's where I
She,
saw most of this
you know,
stuff.
that might have arisen because she was shaking her head. Because sometimes with dogs with flappy ears, they shake their head so much that they burst vessels and things inside their ear, and it just gets very inflamed. So that it might not have had anything to. It's kind of like a secondary effect of the inflammation in the ear, the detox coming through in the ear.
Yeah, and or scratching. I mean, that's
Right, right,
definitely a contributing factor because she was doing that too.
right,
And and when I would could catch her, I would stop her from doing it. But in the middle of the night,
right.
uh, I didn't have so. And you could see it. I mean, these pictures you'll see, you can see the scratches on the outside of her ear very
Okay.
clearly, and she just like tore the hair out. Even it looked really bad.
Okay.
But
So
yeah, over the
on Tuesday, when it
Tuesday,
looked the worst, we talked, and I said, okay, here's what I would do. I would immediately start fasting her, and of course, your first question was how long, and that's always the first question, and it's the hardest one to answer because it's going to depend completely on what happens with the symptom. So I said,
right?
well, and you were texting me, every day, here's what it looks like today, and I kind of sensed that there was this anxiety that you wanted to stop the fast. And that's common. I hear it all the time, can we stop the fast yet? Can I feed her yet? That kind of thing. Not that you were doing that, but I do hear that. I'm kind of sensitive on that topic because I want people to continue and give the body the digestive rest that it needs in order to devote all of its energy to that healing that area. So anyway, so you did start fasting her that day, and go ahead and pick up the story from there.
Yeah, so it actually continued to progress and get worse, and it was a few days after that it I started to see indications that it was peeling back a bit, slowing down, and so yeah, I the fasting. I was telling Nora, I intermittent fast myself. I've been doing it for years, and I know the benefits of that. I experience it directly, so I'm a big fan. And I'm a bit extreme. I mean, honestly, I go full in when I do something a lot of the time. So you know so this would really push my boundaries, I have to say, because
Yeah.
my dog Sammy was already a little skinny in my view, right? I was thinking she was a little skinny
Hmm.
because I could see her hip bones a little bit. I could see kind of the outside of her rib cage, these types of things kind of showing up. And so I was a little concerned about fasting her in that condition. I felt like maybe she was already underweight, so this was my concern about the fasting, is maybe it was too much. I wasn't, this I was a little hesitant, but it wasn't a big deal. So Nora originally suggested a 5-day fast. I was like, well, that's a lot. Okay. I did a 3-day fast once with her before, and I did, 1-day fasts pretty regularly with her before that as well. At 5 days, I was pushing it
Hmm.
for me a little bit. And so, but I went ahead and did it. I was like, all right, let's just accept this. This is just what it's going to be. And, for better or worse, I'm committed to this process, and we're going to see this through the best we can. And so, yeah.
And
So we're,
How was Sammy during the fast? What was her
well, it's
behavior like?
interesting, because, she was definitely, I could see that she was losing weight, but she really accepted it too, honestly, because usually when she's hungry she starts whining and this kind of stuff. She wasn't doing any of that
Oh.
after maybe the first day or two.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, but and her energy, she was sleeping a lot,
Hmm.
but her energy when she wasn't asleep was actually really pretty good.
Hmm.
And I'm very conscientious. I pay close attention to like what was going on with her through this period. So I would have noticed if there was some fluctuation in their energy level. Uh, I mean, it sounds a little bit paradoxical because like she was sleeping a lot, but at the same time, like I said, when she wasn't asleep, her energy was actually good.
Right.
So I was like, okay, we're okay. I just made sure she had enough water. I
Hmm.
gave her a lot of water. She
Did
drank
she
a lot
drink?
of water.
She did drink a lot. Okay.
A lot of water.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
she
kind
was
of
going
goes
through.
from what I've seen, it can go either way. Sometimes they drink more, sometimes they
Yeah,
don't drink at all.
yeah, it was impressive. I mean, she's got a
Okay.
pretty big water bowl, and every day I had to fill that thing up. So,
Okay.
and sometimes twice a day. It was crazy. But yeah, so we just kept on, and 5 days in, I think I texted you and said, okay. I was sending you pictures pretty much every day. I think I may have skipped a couple there after the fifth day, but yeah, there was we hit 5 days, and it still wasn't improving
Right.
much. I don't know that it actually was markedly improving at all or slowing down significantly. But I think around the sixth day or seventh day, that's when I started to see different stuff. And I
Hmm.
started seeing scabbing occur, which I thought was a good sign. Um, there wasn't quite so much gook. I mean, she had a
Hmm.
lot of, like, what do you call pus? I mean, it was bad. You'll see in these
Yeah.
pictures. But yeah, it started to kind of slow down a little bit, and so I was like, all right. And so I kept it up. I fasted her for 8 days,
8 days. Okay. So
and
eight
that was
days
about all I
total.
could take because she
Okay.
was seriously. I thought she was skinny before. Oof, man, she got so skinny. She just looks like a little skeleton,
Hmm.
and
It's
like a little
amazing
refugee.
how much fuel they can still have on their bodies even when they're skinny. I mean,
It's impressive.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
they're
impressive.
extremely fuel efficient animals. Dogs are.
Well, and as you explained to me that experiment that was done with that dog, I don't know, decades
Oh
ago,
yeah, yeah.
4 months of
Right.
fasting and
Four
energy
months.
levels sustained through that 4 months.
Right.
I mean, that I kept that in my, that was rolling through my mind a lot. I had to
Oh,
refer back to that. Nora
right.
says 4 months
Right.
on this thing, and
I
we're
know.
talking 5 days, 6 days,
Right.
but the eighth day, I really started to see a lot of improvement. So once I started really seeing the improvement, that's when I decided to go ahead and break the fast, and I gave her some watermelon.
Okay, so you gave her fruits for I think I said feed her fruits for a week and
Yeah.
hopefully or probably the healing will continue. Is that what you ended up seeing?
Yep. Exactly. It
Okay.
is. And then I went ahead and started uh, introducing the vegetables back again, and my the portions were a little smaller
Mhm.
than what I would normally feed her, just to kind of ease her into it a bit.
Right. Yeah.
And
That's
and
what I
then
tell people. All we know is we don't really know what a wild dog would do if they had to go without food for a whole week or 2 weeks or whatever. If they finally came upon food, would they gorge themselves or would they temper their appetites? We don't know that. So all we can do is be conservative based on what we do with humans. And I know some fasting practitioners, and I know how they, I fasted myself, and I know how they break fasts with humans, and they start with very small quantities of food and just build back. So that's generally what I recommend for people, and
yeah, and
it seems to work.
having fasted myself, this is what I do
Hmm.
myself. So I'm like, all right, we'll just translate this over to Sammy. And so I just applied the same principle basically to her. And it seemed to work. She didn't have really any major issues with upset stomach, or she didn't seem like she was in pain or anything like that. Her bowel movements looked good. And so I thought, okay, we're good. We're good.
And so that was like 2 weeks ago. And how's Sammy now? Is her ear completely normal?
Pretty much a lot of
Okay.
hair gone inside and
Right.
out,
So
as you'll
she.
see in the pictures. But yeah, she's got a little bit of a scab still. There's one area in particular that was pretty bad.
Okay.
It's taken a little while to heal, but and then she's got a little bit of a sore on the outside top of her ear, which she's getting to with scratching.
Hmm.
So that's taken a little bit longer to heal, but generally
So no more head
it's
shaking. Is she scratching
she
her
didn't do that.
ears? Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, one of the things she was doing while she was going through this process was she had her head down a lot, always turned to the one side,
Yeah, you sent me
and she was
video,
shaking
and
it a lot.
hopefully we'll
And
be
she
able
was
to
like,
get it into here, into this video.
she looked like she was a
Right.
bit drunk,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of swerving around when she would
Mm-hmm.
walk. And
Mm-hmm.
that was hard for me to see. I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that's no good.
And that was in like the third or fourth day into the fast, as I recall. You sent me that
Yeah, yeah,
video.
yeah.
So she
Well,
was
yeah,
still
that had even
really
started even
suffering.
before that, but
And
it did get worse, and but then it improved, and now she's just normal. It's fine.
and it's really important to note that things can continue to look really bad on the third or fourth day of a fast. And when people are averse to fasting, every minute is agony. And to get to 3 days, it's all they can do to get to 3 days, and they just want to break the fast no matter what. And sometimes the body just needs longer. I've noticed that many times when I've fasted dogs for these localized inflammation issues, that it takes at least 5 days before you start seeing improvements. And the important part is, when you treat this way, when you have a little situation like this, you don't have to let it get really bad. If you'd known what to do when you first started to see her scratch her ears and lean or whatever, um, then it would be done in 3 days. It wouldn't have been such a big mess to clean up. So you could fast her for 3 days and be done with it. But hopefully, when you feed correctly, like I found with my last dog, if you feed correctly, you have no more inflammation problems. And
Yeah,
that's what the difference is between, I mean, you might likely have had the same outcome if you had taken her to the vet. The vet would give her some kind of antibiotic or something to squirt into her ears and tell you to clean her ears every day. And 2 weeks later, it will be done. The problem will have cycled through. But the problem with that is it's going to recur. And
right.
then you will be powerless once again. You will find yourself back in the vet's office. And that's what this industry is built on. That's what that industry is built on, repeat business, because they never will tell you how to resolve the situation permanently.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. I mean, it
Yeah,
is definitely a reorientation. It's a realigning of your paradigm. I mean,
right.
and like I said, I have experience with this from in my own life, that I've been doing this for years,
Right.
and this was still challenging for me. But I am a believer, for sure.
Okay.
Because her body clearly went into like a space of autophagy. I think really,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was remarkable to see
Mm-hmm.
how resilient she was through this process. And I honestly was concerned that she wouldn't make it through, and she did, and she's good. So yeah, I'm doing this for
Cool.
sure.
Okay. Well, that's really. I just wanted to get your story, and I want to empower people with this information, and just tell them that they don't have to be dependent on that system that makes
Well,
money from them.
I'd like to say one more thing, because this
Please.
is probably an issue for most people. It certainly
Mhm.
was for me. Is I would give her some scraps from time to time. I'd let her lick my plate, and just little snacks and stuff like this. I don't do any of that anymore. There's none of that going on anymore. It's like, because I really think that stuff, that practice which I thought was just because I love her and I want her to, she wants some, I want her to be happy, this kind of thing. I really thought that's it was not a big deal. I don't think that's true. I think it is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing any of that now at all,
Well, it
because I sure
depends.
as heck don't want to go through this again.
Right. It depends on how much that happens, but it can be a big deal. And it's so tempting, especially once the dog is already trained to sit and watch you eat.
Yeah,
And, people don't realize that they've reinforced that behavior over the years. And then suddenly they're told, well, you probably shouldn't be, feeding your dog what you're eating unless you eat exactly what your dog eats. And you figure what you're giving her while you're eating into her, overall consumption, which people don't. They feed that stuff on top of meals. So that's important. It can be a big deal. So
And I think that behavior thing is an important point. And I just want to say one more piece, and then I'll be done. But what I noticed is when I made the decision, and I was very clear, we were going to fast for 5 days. Typically, she would be whining and she'd be like, doing her thing. I didn't see any of that going on with her. And I really do think, and it may sound a little woo woo, but I'm telling you, I really think that there's something to this, is that when you're clear about what it is that your intention is and how you're going to approach this, she will align with that. She'll respond to that, and she'll be right on board. So I
Right.
think there's something to be said about that. I know it's probably
She's
pushing the edge for some people, but I
maybe
think there's something
she,
to it.
she might have sensed your resolve and your
Yeah.
confidence. And that's why, that's why I do what I do, because I want people to be as confident about what they're doing as I am. So
Yeah.
it's just
And
so
I appreciate
empowering.
that. I feel that confidence now, having gone through this. It's like on the other side of it now. I definitely don't want to do it again, but if I had to do it again, it would be a different experience for me, I'm sure, because I would feel that confidence from having gone through this experience and realizing the success that that came as a result at the end.
Yeah,
So having gone through it.
all of these experiences really, educate you and inform you and give you strength for the future. So
Yeah, success
anyway,
builds success.
right.
It will. It's progressive.
So
So
anyway, I
cumulative.
I just want to say thank you, Cheta, for doing this. It's going to help a lot of
Absolutely.
people, and best of continued good luck with Sammy, and stay in touch. And I hope everybody enjoyed the interview and the before and after photos and all of that. So,
Yeah.
all
Well, thank you
right,
very much. I appreciate it.
okay, thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye,
Bye.
Cheta.
Bye bye.